Because without our writing, that form is nothing. It isn't authorized to actually be used for anything. If we don't do it, they're going to fill it in, and they're going to fill it in with either typewriting or printing.
Right.
So we're going to be intentional, and we're going to be signing on that tangible document. We're going to be writing on the warehouse receipt. So now I'm going to go up, and then we can end the call. I ain't going to keep you. But we're going to be writing on that warehouse receipt so that we authorize the signature of the seller during the terms that we have of an agreement with them as a secondary obligor of the state. We're going to be signing those writings, and those writings are going to come to us signed, and we're going to be sending those documents to another because we have security interests in those documents. We have a right to those documents as a representative, and we have a right to remedy when it comes to the record. So we're going to be accepting that actual record for its value, and we're going to be taking it, purchasing it, being considered a purchaser of the present value, whatever the amount of that price is. And as an individual, we're going to be using that price to pay a party, a third party, a different type of organization, someone who isn't us. When we conduct and we send that writing, that signed writing to them, we create the medium of exchange, money, so that we're not insolvent and we can actually proceed the insolvency with the holder in good faith, genuinely, using the fungible goods that we are at fault to use, or we should be using, so that we can actually utilize the document of title and deliver it to someone who is in a position of a third party, someone who is a creditor, someone who is able to accept this contract from the consumer and actually accept it for personal, family, or household purposes. When they do that according to the terms of your agreement. Whatever conspicuous terms is listed out in the agreement that you have with the seller, they accept that good, that conspicuous item that they notice from the buyer in the ordinary course of business as a fact, or due to a fact that they actually have an agreement with a branch, an unincorporated branch. So we receive this foreign currency from them, and they come with bills of lading. They come with a document, and or due to a bill of lading, a promissory note, documents that we have that the bank is the bearer of, and they will be holding, but become the bearer of, due to an agreement that we have with, or an action that we have taken with another, due to equity, some sort of set off, due to an account. You're going to see in a lot of your agreements that you have these companies like anyone, Capital One, Offset, any type of not Offset, I'm sorry, Capital One, Credit One, any type of apartment complex, any type of rental that you have, you're going to see that the action that they take is going to be set off. It's going to be suits of equity. It's going to be a proceeding of that type for so that they can recoup and have a counterclaim. We don't have to go through all of that. We don't have to go through any type of census of judicial proceedings at all. These companies will be offsetting and dealing with equity for us so that we can proceed to our rights determined by the agreement that we have with them. And that's how we contract with everybody or transact with everybody. It's never going to stop. We're always going to be receiving these documents, these applications, these agreements, filling them out, giving them back, creating them, giving it to a bank. And in return, they're going to be given us chattel paper, documents of title, things that we can actually use to meet our obligation to pay.
Wow, that's so empowering.
Look, I'm like, so next time we meet this week, we gonna really look into your bill. I will take you here just to get to Article 2 because it's gonna describe the sale. So we're gonna start looking at the bill because that's what you were actually sold. I'll show you a few things like I did in here, and then we'll get straight to it.
Nice. Thank you so much.
So how do you feel? How do you feel? Do you understand how they let us know and they broke down commerce, how we transact and how we're supposed to with each other by
Yeah,
sending and using these documents,
right.
making claims to them, purporting them for whatever present value it is?
Yeah. It's crazy. It's definitely empowering.
Man, empowering for sure. You see, that's the word they use.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful cycle, and they keep going like that all the way down to Article 9, telling you how to secure your transaction. So we're going to get to the point where, of course, we're just going to be looking at the definitions to tell the story, but the definition in each article tells you exactly what it is you are to do with these documents in commerce. Even if you look at nothing else, but just the definitions is going to tell you. And you do have articles 1 through 9 where we kind of just break down in depth. And just now you got more clarity on it. So
Yep.
when you go back and look at it, you'll take it from a different perspective. But I am going to send the contract and the UCC comparison course, because I do want you to look at that and watch that after seeing this.
Okay, we'll do.
So, good morning.
Morning.
And last time we met, we covered, the reason why, or we discussed the reason why we covered volumes 1 through 3, speaking of the purposes of the Uniform Commercial Code. And it all is gearing you up to be able to look at the law and read it and dissect it, as well as looking at your bills and doing the exact same thing.
Right.
So the last time we looked at Article 1, and I went over a couple of things, just the outline of the Uniform Commercial Code, and we went into Article 1 and just looked at different parts and certain aspects within those parts to help us or bring a better understanding to us of what or how we may transact with another, seeing that that is the first thing that they speak about in commerce.
Right.
So in order to bridge any gap when it comes to being provided any services or agreeing for any services, you have the Uniform Commercial Code that governs the good. So they let us know that in order to even get to the service, we deal with these goods and we make sales with one another. So we're going to talk about and dig deep into, what that sale looks like. How should we recognize it? Just little details that's going to help us to understand when we get to your bill, what do we have? What was just sold to us? How should we perceive it? What we're dealing with. Article 2 is going to tell you what you were dealing with when you initiated the agreement with the seller. And they also going to tell you what you're dealing with when that seller extends payment to you.
Okay.
So going into Article 2, what do you think should be the first thing that we do? Article 2 of the Uniform Commercial Code. We're clearly here because we want to know something about the sale of contracts. Promissory note, a future good like your bill, the entire lot when you receive it, or just the commercial unit. They're going to define the transferability when it comes to the sales of it. Okay, what else they're going to define for us and talk about when it comes to sales?
The contract, the agreement, contract for sale, present sale, conforming to a contract.
Yeah, you see those quotation marks around conforming. So that's letting you know that it's not really going to come to you conforming, but also going to define that. And they're also going to be talking about and telling us about goods that are to be severe from reality in recording. So goods that are taken from the land, goods that are tore apart, things that are recorded once it's done. So the first thing that you're going to do when you open up an article is think about the article prior to, so that you can connect the dot. Then you're going to look at the different parts and read those titles so that you can understand what, you're getting yourself into as you, dive into sales or whatever the title may be.
Right.
And then you want to look into just sections like how we read this to see what may pertain to what we need and what might not pertain to what we need. Definitions is always going to pertain to what we need. So we're definitely going to cover these definitions because these definitions are going to, on what sale or what basis are you dealing with the sale of the document.
Right.
I just click these just because, but the scope of sales when it comes to certain security. So when as we are transacting with these documents and we're selling or transferring or transacting with these documents, it's for security. So this article is just going to be applying to the unconditional ways that you're able to present a sale or a sale is able to occur. This is what we're about to get ready to learn about. We're going to learn about how this article impairs or repeal any statute that relates to the sale to consumers. So they're going to be speaking about sale to consumers, sales to farmers, or any other classified classes of buyers, right? How do you feel about that? What do you think?
I did. I'm excited to dig
It's so
in.
dope. So these are important definitions. And I really want you to, when we first get into the definition section, I know I'm kind of throwing a lot of things at you to remember in order, but I promise I'm going to test you. I'm just trying to make this fair, give you a chance to be familiar and make sure I'm delivering the video. But each time we crank open the definitions, I want you to notice, just like we did when we first opened up the beginning, we noticed the different parts. I want you to look and see if you have numbers 1, 2, maybe even A or B or anything in reference like this.
Okay.
Because they're telling you that there's two things that they're about to say about the definitions and the index. So it's indicating two different things. One part is going to be describing the definitions, as the title stated.
Mhm.
And the number 2 is going to be the addition, and it's going to be including the index of those definitions. Like, what do these definitions include? What
Okay.
else or where else are you going to see or, have these bolded words included?
Right.
So you could go ahead and read it and stop at A, and then you can elaborate, and then I'll take it from there. But just so that you get used to, reading and just hearing it out loud. So how many things or how many points that they just make in point A, and who are they talking about?
Um, 2 points
Okay. And how did you determine that they were talking or making 2 points?
because it's or, so there's one side or the other,
Or both, right?
or both. Okay.
Okay.
They're talking about us who receive it.
Right, the buyer. So you want to look at
Okay.
the word that is bold and conspicuous because that's what they want to bring your notice to. That's what they want you to notice. So in Article 1, you remember we went over things that, we are to notice, and those things were going to be conspicuous. They told us
Right.
that part in the definition. So from that point forward, anything that we see in bold, it doesn't matter if you receive it on your bill or we're reading here in the text. If it's bold, we want to notice it because that's going to give us our subject matter. So the buyer is who they're talking about, right?
Mhm.
So what are the two things that they're saying about the buyer? So
I guess.
one,
Yeah.
they buy goods. The buyer
Uh-huh.
buy goods. That's the first thing. And the buyer also does what?
The contract
To
to
buy
buy.
goods. Right.
Yeah.
So a buyer, according to Article 2, when it comes to the sale of these documents, 1, they buy them. And for 2, they contract to buy them. So we're going to be receiving our goods in the mail and we're going to be taking and obtaining them. So we're going to be buying the document. And once we accept that document, we're also going to be using it to contract for the goods, for the sale of the goods. So we contract to buy goods. Each and every time we initiate an agreement with the seller, it is so that we receive that good so that we could contract to sell them. And so that we can take them, buy them.
So how does
Here's
that
where
different? Because in order for us to buy it, we have to contract to buy it. Is that
exactly.
right?
Well, we have to create an agreement to buy it. That agreement is then going to give us a contract to buy, which is our actual bill, a contract, an agreement due to the actual sale. But remember that contract and agreement has corresponding meanings.
Mhm.
So we learned that from Article 1 yesterday or the last time we met. When we're dealing with agreements, that's where we bargain the facts and that's when we initiate the sale. So that's the promissory note is going to be considered to be your agreement.
Right.
The contract is going to be your actual good, the bill, what you
Bill.
take from the seller. That's your contract. You receive that contract due to an agreement. What you contracted to receive was that bill, and that was the agreement. So when you are considered to be the buyer, and it means the person who buys, you're always taking these documents. You took the application, right?
Right.
So you obtained it. You purchased it off top because you felt it out and gave it value. And you transferred it back, right?
Yes.
So you contracted to buy goods at a future date. You took that contract for them and you filled it out so you can obtain that. That should have been your reason, but we know it was something behind it. You wanted to buy something, a car, house, whatever. But truly, from a changed perspective of what money is, it's the personal property that we're creating this energy and money with. So that's what we buy anytime we take an application from a seller and we fill it out and give it value. We're buying that document from them and we're selling it back to them with all our personal information on it that gave it the value. And we're transferring title of seller to them. Whenever we do that, we only initiate that type of agreement so that we contract to buy goods, contract to buy our bills at a later date. So whenever our bill come in the mail, now we just received our statement. We just received the contract, what we agreed to receive, and we have to take it so that we can. So the buyer does that, and so do you understand the point of the 2 points that they make? That buyers do 2 things: they buy and then contract to buy goods.
Yes.
Okay. What's another point that they made about sales? And B.
Good faith.
That could work. And you also can, if you want to go up and down with it, a buyer in good faith receives receipts to trade with the seller.
Okay.
If you want to go up, then the seller are in possession of receipts in good faith from the buyer, someone who buys.
Makes sense.
Okay.
Yours make more
So
sense.
that's why. No, but it's cool because you said the same thing too. You really did. It's like you can just go like strictly hit on the bold points because that's what they want you to notice and maybe pick out 1 or 2 things. So the seller, we know we're dealing with receipts. So the seller is always going to be in a receipt of goods from the buyer and vice versa.
Right.
And we're going to be in receipt of these goods with one another in good faith. Like, period. That's honesty in the fact and observing uniform commercial code and that we're trading and exchanging and transferring these documents, not cash.
Right.
Non-cash payments. As a buyer and a seller, we're not buying USD. We're buying and selling each other documents, not a property that belongs to the United States. Okay. So they made another point, which was the second option. This was basically letting you know where you're going to find buyer, good faith, receipt, and seller within these other sections. A person, they just tell you all the places where you're going to be seeing a mention of a seller and a buyer because they're going to be dealing with drafts.
Right.
And dishonoring them, dishonoring consumer goods. The consignor is to the consignee. What they're going to give them is a check.
Right.
You see that?
Yes.
What can happen, the actions that can take place between this seller and this buyer with this receipt is that there can be a termination. There can be a sale or return. And when you're dealing with, it's going to be a sale and a approval. And when you receive it, it's just going to be a sale. But that sale you receive is going to be the present sale for a present value. The person who sent it to you is in the position of a seller. And that seller is from overseas. Do you understand that these merchants that we deal with are merchants that are overseas? So we're always receiving foreign currency.
Yes.
We're receiving that overseas from a person who's in the position of a seller. And they're always going to be making sales to us of present sales. Waiting to see if we approve it. Waiting to see if we're going to sell or return it. Or if it's going to be terminated. We're going to be making sure we're canceling out each payment. Not terminating our contract.
Okay.
So we receive from a person in the position of a seller overseas that's considered to be a merchant this lot. This whole bill, the bill that you receive is a lot. It is considered to be a letter of credit. It is due to an installment contract, promissory note that you have. And you're able to identify your lot or your commercial unit or whatever it is that you have, your goods, according to that contract. The goods that you have are considered to be the future goods. So whenever you receive your bill in the mail, you have received a future good because you used the installment contract, which was the good that was used at the time, so that you can agree to receive future goods. Your bill. You're going to be receiving those from financing agencies. And we're also going to be entrusting them to financing agencies so that it covers the good. We're going to be using the good for sale. And we're going to be contracting with a financing agency, someone who we entrust the good to. And we're going to be trusting that they contract for the sale of the conforming price. Not the minimum payment, but the conforming price. Because that is the confirmed credit according to the agreement. Do you follow me?
Yes.
Okay.
Understand.
Okay. That confirmed credit is going to be the commercial unit. It's going to be represented on that commercial unit. The bottom portion, the check that we detach.
Uh-huh.
And instead of terminating the contract, we're going to be canceling out that commercial unit, that confirmed credit. And that's going to be happening between merchants using bankers credit and the acceptance of our commercial units. So we're going to be using the receipt that we receive from the seller. We're going to be using that commercial unit, that confirmed credit in the full price. And we're going to be canceling it out because the consumer that is involved is going to constantly keep receiving these bills up until the installation contract ends. It's only for the individual who is discharged where, confined to using the USD. But the purpose of sales is so that we can sell overseas. We can't circulate this money outside of the US. The only USD that should be circulated in the US, it should be among society. Your US dollar, the money that you earn, whether it's from a job or it's income, like receiving your bill, like you shouldn't be paying USD for that. Unless, you paying the company that is registered in the United States, then it's cool. But other than that, you receive income from a person in the position of a seller from overseas. They send you a bill that represents a price that doesn't have a certain currency flow. So we're gonna identify, these goods. But when you think about money, your
Uh-huh.
perspective of money is circulation.
Okay.
Circulation, using these goods to create this medium of exchange. Flow, just like the seas, flow. We're taking our stock and we're letting it flow because stock and flow is what runs commerce. The stock that we receive is this share from the seller, and we're going to continue its flow. We're going to give it to somebody else happily. So how do you feel about that? Do you understand the reason why you receive your bill, why these sales are happening just a little bit so far?
Yeah.
You're not just looking at this, but you're overstanding. Like we have a complete overstanding of Article 2-103. We know exactly what it means and what they're talking about. We know exactly why we're making these sales, why these drafts is gonna be dishonored. What they're dishonoring to us is consumer goods. That's why they dishonor. They're dishonoring the draft to give the consumer goods what we're dealing with. And so far from covering the definitions, we know that we're going to be dealing with transferring these receipts in good faith from seller to buyer. You agree?
Yes.
Okay, so that's what we're going to be doing. Now they define merchant between merchant and financing agency. What do that kind of warrant to you? Considering what we previously just covered in those definitions, what does the next set of definitions warrant to you? If anything at all.
Um, just that who's the merchant, and
Okay.
who's who's the merchant and the financing agency and the transaction that happens between them.
Okay, cool. And if you relate what we just read 2-103 to this, it will let you know that maybe these people are involved with the sale and buy of those goods between the seller and the buyer. So what is the first thing that you should identify? We already looked at the title. So what else should you identify? Just to get a thorough breakdown and
Section.
understanding exactly. So how many sections? So a merchant can be something else, or it can be both of these things. You see how this is working out?
Yes.
A merchant can hold themselves out of the knowledge by his job, or a merchant can have skill that is peculiar to the practices. So they either know and have skill of the goods that's involved in the transaction, or they don't. They hold themselves out of that knowledge, or they have the skill. It could be any of these things, any of them. So one of them might know, some of them might not know. Some of them might have the skill, some of them might not have the skill. But one thing for sure, they all deal with these goods that are involved in the transaction. They just have no knowledge on how you may attribute to his employment of an agent or a broker, because that's what we're dealing with in that relationship, an agent and a broker and being employed. You know, we have a job, that employee employer relationship.
Yes.
So there's a lot of ors when it comes to what a merchant can actually be. A merchant also could be someone other than an intermediary who by his occupation hold himself out of having such knowledge or skill. So someone else can hold themselves out of having such knowledge or such skill. So a merchant can be one thing, somebody who deals in goods, that's for sure. Or a merchant can be somebody who has a peculiar skill. So that means that they know of this practice. All of them may not. That's why we have these ors. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different things.
Absolutely. It made everything more clear. So I'm definitely gonna go back and read it again. Yeah, no, that's awesome. Thank you very much. That
You're so,
information.
so welcome. Look, it's my pleasure. This is everything that I'm showing you, that I'm breaking you through. The purpose of the mentorship is to show you every single thing that I did to get it, every single thing that, I did to correct myself, and, just everything. I'm avoiding that for you and showing you what I should have been looking in before I did all the trial and error.
Thank you very much.